Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor S.P. Singh from Faculty of Management Studies, Gurukul Kangdi University, Haridwar. Today we are going to study Module 32 on Ethics in Qualitative Research. After studying this module, you shall be able to understand the need for ethics in research, know the code of ethics, comprehend the ethics committee, know acting ethically in qualitative research, understand the necessity for qualitative research ethics. Ethics has acquired an important place in doing effective and useful research. For this reason, the ethical behavior of researchers is being investigated as never before. In the present society, issues regarding ethical actions are going to positively affect attitudes towards science and negatively for the unethical practice a few researchers commit. Though ethical directions are available, each individual researcher must take into account ethical concerns within an investigation. Although guidelines are not frequently changing, the best surety against unethical research practices is the intelligent scientist who can judiciously think carefully the situation met with. Researchers with their intellectually curious minds are constrained to stress on in the growth and spreading widely new knowledge. The issue is just to consider if it is ethical to execute research, but also if it is unethical not to undertake an inquiry. Need for ethics in research. In the wider public, the sensitiveness for ethical issues in research is becoming larger due to scandals. Violations of human rights in the garb of scientific research have been among the darkest events in history. During 40 years, more than 400 African American people having syphilis were intentionally left without treatment to study the sickness. Though United States Public Health Service sponsored the study, the revelation of the 40-year study caused public visualizes the gross violation of law. Second example of unethical research was the experimentation executed between 1950 and 1952 in which more than 1,000 pregnant women were provided dithyl steliberistrol to avert miscarriages. These women were a matter of investigation to a double-blind study without approval. Over 20 years after, when the children of these women had high incidences of cancer and other abnormal conditions, did the participants learn they were subjects of these experiments. Past and recent incidents of research fraud made the Germany Research Council to develop rules of good conduct to be accepted and enacted by every university or institute applying for research grants. The growing sensitivity for ethical issues in research over the years has led to the formulation of a large number of codes of ethics and the setting up of ethics committees in various areas. Ethics in different contexts is usually difficult to put into clear-cut solutions and clarifications. Rather, researchers encounter ethical issues in every phase of research process. Code of Ethics. Code of Ethics is designed to monitor the existing connection of researchers to the fields for the planned study. Principles of research ethics need that researchers do not impose something that the participants suffer participating in the process by holding their esteem and taking into account their interests and needs. Various codes of ethics have been evolved which require that informed consent should be the basis of research. They also ask for that the research avoids attacking their privacy and not deceive them regarding the purposes of research. Ethical theory relate with 4 issues involving non-maleficence, beneficence, autonomy and justice. Principles of ethics. The problem inseparable from qualitative research can be mitigated by having knowledge and application of well-established ethical principles, particularly autonomy, beneficence and justice. The principles of honor for people, beneficence and justice should guide any kind of research. The respect for people is the acceptance of participants' rights involving the right to be informed about the study, the right to freely decision to participate in a study and the right to withdraw at any time without punishment. In a qualitative research study, the informed consent honors the principle performing an agreeable balance between over-informing and under-informing. Beneficence is doing good for others and safeguarding them from harm. Beneficence in some circumstances may be extended to the extreme as paternalism involving the refusal of autonomy and freedom of choice. For example, the researcher may desire to investigate the issue of violence among elderly women, but may determine not to include them being too vulnerable. In this case, the researcher is not giving elderly women the opportunity to determine for themselves. Justice refers to equality and fairness, recognizing vulnerability of the participants and their contributions to the study demonstrate the researcher's understanding and application of justice in qualitative research. For example, if the researchers during analysis of data think that a concept or a heading of the report will be based on the contribution of a particular participant, ethically the researcher should seek permission with the participant to use such a concept. Thus, the contributions of that participant are acknowledged. Ethics committees. Ethics committees have been established in many areas. In order to ensure ethical standards, the committees examine the research design and methods before they can be used. Good ethical practice in research is based on 2 conditions. The researchers will conduct their research in accordance with ethical standards. The ethics committees examine the research proposals for their ethical robustness. Reviews of ethical robustness will concentrate on 3 aspects of scientific quality, the welfare of participation, and dignity and rights of participants. Scientific quality. Any research not contributing new knowledge to the existing knowledge can be reviewed as unethical. In order to judge the quality of research, the members of ethics committee must possess the essential knowledge for assessing a research proposal on the level of methodology. The members of the committee need be researchers themselves, or at least some of them are the researchers. There are several reasons a committee may determine to reject or block a research proposal, not necessarily based on ethical reasons. Welfare of participants. Welfare of participants is often connected to evaluating the risks against the benefits. Weighing the risks and benefits is relative, then absolute and clear. Dignity and rights of participants. Dignity and rights of participants are concerned to voluntary consent of the participant given on the basis of sufficient and adequate information. Further, researchers also need to ensure participants' confidentiality, which means that the information about them is only used in a way which makes it impossible for other individuals to identify the participants or for any institution to use it against the interest of the participant. Acting ethically in qualitative research. Academicians have drawn contours of the overall ethical employment of any research. All facets of the research process, from determining the topic through to selecting a sample, performing the research and spread widely the findings, have ethical implications. Researchers are faced with ethical issues at every stage of the research. How to enter a field and address and choose the participant is the issue concerning how the participants are informed and who is informed about the research, its purposes, and the anticipations of research. Informed consent. Complete revelation of the proceedings of suggested survey or research design prior to soliciting formal consent to advance with the study. Obtaining the informed consent from the respondent is involved. There are exceptional situations where a signed consent on a form may be essential or may be obtained. When studying children, it is wise to have a parent or other person with legal authority sign a consent form. When conducting research with medical or psychological consequences, it is also prudent to have a consent form. For most business research, oral consent is adequate. In circumstances, respondents are intentionally or accidentally deceived, they should be given a brief once the research is complete. Avoid harm for participants in gathering data. While gathering data, the researcher may be encountered with another ethical issue. If the problem of research the researcher has the interest is how people spend their life and cope with a chronic illness, for example, the suggested interview questions may face people with the sternness of the illness or the lack of expectations in their coming life. This may, in some cases, create an internal crisis for these people. Is it ethically sound to take this risk for the sake of research? Doing justice to participants in analysis of data. In analyzing and writing about the data, the research will come to certain decisions. For example, a specific person can be assigned to particular coping behaviors while other persons are allocated other types of coping skills. If the participants note this result, they may find it embarrassing to be equated with other people, and they may also visualize themselves in a different way. Beyond such shortcoming in classifying oneself and being classified, to do justice to participants in analysis, data implies that interpretations are really grounded in the data. The judgments on a personal level should not be included and should take the participants subject to a diagnostic evaluation of their personality For example, confidentiality in writing about research. When research is conducted with a number of members of a specific surrounding, or when different people are interviewed in one company or a family, the obligation for confidentiality gets prominence. Readers of the report ought not to be in a position to distinguish the company or the person who took part in the research. For this reason, the particulars like names, addresses, company identity, etc., must be encrypted in order to safeguard identities. Efforts should be undertaken to ensure that associates cannot find out participants from details about the study. For example, when interviewing children, parents may often be found desiring to know what their children uttered in the interview. To avoid this problem, parents should be informed right at the start of the research that this is not feasible. Finally, it is worthy to note that data is stored in a safe, completely secure space so that none is able to have access to these data that is not intended to have access. Problem of context in qualitative data and research. Usually, the data of qualitative research generate more context information concerning a single participant than quantitative research. Generally, it is not possible to distinguish a participant from a survey and the statistical data issued publicly across numerous cases. When you examine a single case or a restricted number of cases, the research will define and use extract from live records of publications. It is simpler to distinguish the real person from the contextual information contained in such a quotation. Necessity of better qualitative research. Qualitative research is commonly planned as very wide and is able to adapt to changes in the field. In comparison to quantitative research, in qualitative research methods are less based on principles. This makes examination by ethics committees more complex, as it is, for example, more complex to see beforehand the kinds of data to be gathered for an ethnographic research. It also turns it sometimes not easy to obtain consent of those being researched, especially when observations are carried out in public places. The openness sometimes takes to a rather comprehensive approach in data collection instead of a clearly focused set of questions or things to observe. Therefore, it may be useful to ponder about a rather economic approach to the field, which means to collect those data and aspects that are really necessary to answer the research question. Ethics is an important issue in planning and observing a research. Often it is difficult to find simple and general solutions to the problems and dilemmas. It has a lot to do with reflection and sensitivity. Considering ethical dilemmas, however, should not hinder the researcher from conducting his research, but should assist him do it more intentionally and take his participants' viewpoint on a different level. The research should try to think the participants' role and consider their perspective. This may be a good starting point for reflecting on the ethical issues linked to his specific research. Friends, in this module, you have studied the need for ethics in research, the code of ethics, the ethics committee, acting ethically in qualitative research, and the necessity for qualitative research ethics. Thanks for visiting EPG Pathshala.